The first gunshot cracked through the clear Wyoming air as Morgan Xander drove his cattle across the open range, a sound that would forever change the course of his solitary life in the untamed frontier of 1878. The 30-year-old rancher instinctively ducked low in his saddle, scanning the horizon for the source of trouble, his weathered face creasing with concern beneath the wide brim of his Stetson. Morgan was a man of few words but decisive action, traits that had served him well since inheriting his father's modest spread 5 years prior. The Double X Ranch wasn't the largest in Sweetwater County, but Morgan had built it into something respectable: 100 head of cattle, 3 dependable ranch hands, and a sturdy 2-bedroom cabin that stood as a testament to his father's dream and his own perseverance. A second shot rang out, closer this time, followed by the distant sound of a woman's scream. Morgan's stallion, Renegade, danced nervously beneath him as he drew his Winchester from its leather scabbard. "Steady, boy," he murmured, patting the horse's neck. His blue eyes narrowed as he spotted movement in the distance, a covered wagon under attack by what appeared to be 3 bandits on horseback. Morgan didn't hesitate. He spurred Renegade forward, racing across the sagebrush-dotted plain toward the commotion. As he closed the distance, he could make out a woman desperately trying to control panicked horses while returning fire with a small revolver. The bandits, seeing Morgan's approach, fired a few more wild shots before retreating toward the foothills, apparently deciding the wagon's contents weren't worth a confrontation with armed reinforcements. "You all right, madam?" Morgan called as he approached, rifle at the ready but pointed safely upward. The woman lowered her pistol, her hands visibly shaking. "They killed my husband," she said, her voice breaking. "2 days ago near South Pass." Morgan dismounted, approaching cautiously. The woman appeared to be in her mid-20s, with auburn hair escaping from beneath a simple bonnet. Her dress was travel-stained but of good quality. Most striking were her eyes, bright green and filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "I'm Morgan Xander," he said, removing his hat. "My ranch is about 5 miles east of here." "Josephine Zeller," she replied, attempting to compose herself. "My son and I were heading to California. My husband's brother has a place there." Her voice caught. "Had a place. I don't even know if we'd be welcome now." Morgan glanced at the wagon. "Your son?" "Asleep, thank the Lord," Josephine said. "He's only 3. He doesn't understand that his father isn't coming back." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away, straightening her shoulders. Morgan admired her resolve. Those men might return with reinforcements. "My place isn't far. You'd be safe there until you decide what to do next." Josephine hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Thank you, Mr. Xander. I accept your offer." "Morgan," he corrected gently, "let me help secure your team." As they traveled toward the Double X, Morgan rode alongside the wagon, vigilant for any sign of the bandits' return. Josephine explained that her husband, Thomas, had been a schoolteacher in St. Louis. They'd sold everything to move west, dreaming of starting a new life. 3 days into their journey through Wyoming territory, they'd been ambushed. Thomas had been shot while trying to protect his family. "I buried him myself," Josephine said quietly. "Used his favorite Bible as a marker." Morgan said nothing, but his jaw tightened beneath his beard. The West could be merciless to the unprepared. He'd seen it claim too many lives, including those of his mother and younger brother during his childhood. They reached the ranch as the sun began its descent behind the Rockies. Morgan's foreman, Pete Calloway, emerged from the bunkhouse, eyebrows rising at the sight of the wagon. "Pete, this is Mrs. Zeller and her boy," Morgan explained. "They'll be staying with us a while." Pete, a grizzled veteran of the Civil War who'd ridden with Morgan's father, nodded respectfully to Josephine. "Madam, we're honored to have you." Morgan helped Josephine down from the wagon seat, then reached inside for the sleeping child. The boy stirred but didn't wake as Morgan carried him toward the main house, struck by how light the child felt in his arms. "It's not much," Morgan said as they entered the cabin, "but it's solid and warm." Josephine looked around at the simple but well-kept interior, a stone fireplace, solid wooden furniture built by Morgan's own hands, and bookshelves lined with volumes that had belonged to his parents. "It's a real home," she said softly. "That's more than many have out here." Morgan showed her to the spare bedroom, placing the boy Samuel. She called him on the bed. "Rest now," he said. "You're safe here." That night, after Josephine and Samuel were settled, Morgan sat on his porch, smoking his pipe and staring at the stars. Pete joined him, offering a cup of coffee. "She's in a bad way," Pete observed. "What's your plan?" Morgan shrugged. "Give her time to get her bearings. Help her get to California if that's what she wants." Pete gave him a sidelong glance. "And if it isn't?" Morgan didn't answer. The question stirred something in him he wasn't ready to examine. The first week passed quietly. Josephine insisted on earning her keep, taking over the cooking and bringing a woman's touch to the bachelor-run household. Samuel, initially shy, soon began following Morgan everywhere, peppering him with questions about horses, cattle, and the workings of the ranch. Morgan found himself enjoying the boy's company more than he'd expected. Having grown up with a younger brother, he fell easily into the role of patient teacher, showing Samuel how to feed the chickens and collect eggs, letting him sit in the saddle during evening rides around the corral. One evening, Morgan returned from checking fence lines to find Josephine on the porch, watching the sunset. She'd washed her hair and it hung in damp waves down her back. Something about the sight made his chest tighten. "Samuel's asleep," she said as he approached. "He wore himself out helping Pete with the horses." Morgan smiled. "He's a good boy, quick learner." "He's becoming attached to you," Josephine said carefully, "to this place." Morgan sat beside her on the bench. "And you, what are your thoughts?" She looked down at her hands. "I've written to Thomas's brother. I haven't heard back yet. I'm not sure we'd be welcome, to be honest. Thomas and he had a falling out years ago." "You've got time," Morgan assured her. "Winter's coming. The passes will be dangerous soon. Better to wait until spring for such a journey anyway." Josephine looked relieved. "I wouldn't want to impose." "You're not imposing. Having you here, it's—" Morgan struggled to find the right words. "It's nice, having a family around the place again." The word family hung between them, loaded with unspoken possibilities. As autumn painted the surrounding hills in golds and reds, Josephine and Samuel became fixtures at the Double X. The ranch hands adored them, both Samuel for his mischievous energy, Josephine for her cooking and the feminine presence that had been missing from their lives. Even Renegade, Morgan's typically temperamental stallion, developed a fondness for the woman, nickering softly whenever she approached the corral. Morgan found himself looking forward to evenings by the fire, listening to Josephine read aloud from his father's collection of books, her voice bringing the stories to life in a way his solitary readings never had. Sometimes, when Samuel had gone to bed, they would talk late into the night about their pasts, their dreams, the lives they'd imagined for themselves before fate had intervened. "I never thought I'd end up in Wyoming," Josephine confessed one night. "I always pictured myself in a big city attending lectures and symphonies." "Do you regret it?" Morgan asked. Coming west, she considered this. "I regret losing Thomas. I regret that Samuel won't know his father, but being here," she looked around the warm cabin. "No, I can't regret that." Their eyes met across the room, and Morgan felt something shift between them, a recognition of feelings neither was ready to name. The first snow came early that year, blanketing the ranch in pristine white. Samuel was ecstatic, having never seen snow before. Morgan showed him how to build a snowman and taught him to recognize animal tracks in the fresh powder. "Look," Samuel exclaimed one morning, pointing to deer prints leading toward the creek. "Can we follow them, Mr. Morgan, please?" Morgan glanced at Josephine, who nodded her approval. "Not too far," she cautioned, "and bundle up properly." Morgan helped Samuel into his coat, a hand-me-down from one of the ranch hand's nephews, and lifted the boy onto his shoulders. Together they followed the tracks, Morgan explaining how to tell how recently the deer had passed by the freshness of the prints. "Will we see it?" Samuel asked excitedly. "Maybe, but even if we don't, isn't it nice knowing it's out there, that we share this land with such beautiful creatures?" Samuel considered this. "Like how I know Mama's near even when I can't see her," the innocent question caught Morgan off guard. "Yes," he said finally. "Exactly like that." That evening, after Samuel was asleep, Morgan found Josephine mending one of his shirts by the fire. "You don't have to do that," he said, settling into his chair across from her. "I don't mind," she replied, not looking up from her stitches. "It's peaceful having something to fix." Morgan watched her fingers work deftly with the needle. "Josephine," he began, then hesitated. She looked up, her expression open. "Yes, Christmas is coming. I thought perhaps we might ride into town next week, get some supplies, maybe find something special for Samuel." Her face lit up. "He'd love that. He's never had a proper Christmas celebration." "Neither have I," Morgan admitted. "Not since my mother died." Josephine's expression softened. "Then we'll make it special for both of you." Their trip to town proved more eventful than planned. A sudden squall blew in while they were shopping, forcing them to take a room at the Sweetwater Hotel. Samuel was delighted by the adventure, bouncing on the bed while Morgan brought in their purchases. One room was all they had left, Morgan explained apologetically. "I'll sleep in the chair," Josephine shook her head. "Don't be ridiculous, the bed is plenty large." Seeing his hesitation, she added, "We're both adults, Morgan, and it's freezing." That night, lying beside her in the darkness, Morgan was acutely aware of Josephine's presence, the subtle lavender scent of her hair, the rhythm of her breathing. When she shifted in her sleep, her hand brushed against his arm, sending an unexpected jolt through him. Morgan lay awake for hours, confronting feelings he'd been avoiding for weeks. Josephine wasn't just a woman in need of protection anymore. She'd become something much more: a companion, a partner, someone whose smile he looked forward to each morning and whose laugh made his day brighter. But she was also a widow still mourning her husband, a mother whose primary concern was her son's welfare. The last thing she needed was complications from a rancher who'd spent most of his adult life avoiding emotional entanglements. The storm passed by morning, allowing them to return to the ranch. Christmas preparations continued, with Josephine teaching Samuel carols and Morgan fashioning a crude wooden horse as a gift for the boy. On Christmas Eve, Pete and the other hands joined them in the main house for dinner. They sang carols afterward, their voices filling the cabin with warmth that had nothing to do with the roaring fire. Later, after the ranch hands had returned to the bunkhouse and Samuel was asleep, Morgan and Josephine sat alone by the dying embers. "I have something for you," Morgan said, reaching into his pocket. He produced a small package wrapped in brown paper. Josephine unwrapped it carefully to reveal a silver hairpin adorned with a small turquoise stone. "Morgan, it's beautiful," she whispered. "It was my mother's," he explained. "One of the few things I have left of hers. I thought it would suit you." Josephine looked up at him, her eyes shining. "I'm honored, truly." Their fingers touched as she took the pin and neither pulled away. For a long moment they remained connected, the simple contact saying more than words could express. The moment was interrupted by a noise from Samuel's room. Josephine withdrew her hand, rising to check on her son. Morgan remained by the fire, wondering if he'd made a mistake in revealing his feelings, however indirectly. January brought bitter cold, and a letter from California. Thomas's brother had finally responded. Morgan watched Josephine's face as she read it, trying to gauge her reaction. "He says we're welcome," she said finally, folding the letter. "He's remarried, his wife is expecting their first child in the spring." "That's good news," Morgan said, ignoring the heaviness in his chest. Josephine nodded, but her enthusiasm seemed forced. "Yes, of course." The letter changed something between them. A deadline now hung over their heads, unspoken but ever present. Morgan threw himself into ranch work, spending long days in the saddle despite the cold. Josephine grew quieter, often standing at the window watching the snow fall, lost in thought. Samuel, sensitive to the shift in atmosphere, became clingy and fretful. "I don't want to go to California," he announced one evening during dinner. "I want to stay here with Mr. Morgan and the horses." "Samuel," Josephine chided gently, "we've talked about this. Your uncle is expecting us." "I don't care," the boy cried, tears streaming down his face. "This is our home now," Morgan intervened. "Samuel, why don't we go check on the new calf, give your mother some peace?" Outside in the barn, Morgan lifted Samuel onto a hay bale. "Your mother wants what's best for you," he explained. Sometimes that means making hard choices. Don't you want us to stay? Samuel asked, wiping his nose on his sleeve. The question pierced Morgan to his core. Of course I do, he said honestly, but what I want isn't what matters here. What does matter? Morgan sighed. What your mother believes will make you both happy in the long run. We're happy here, Samuel insisted. I know, partner, I know. That night, a fierce blizzard descended on the ranch. The wind howled around the cabin, rattling windows and sending snow swirling through any available crack. Morgan added extra logs to the fire, concerned about the livestock in the barn. I need to check on the animals, he told Josephine. Make sure the barn door is secure. Be careful, she urged, concern etched on her face. Morgan bundled up and ventured into the storm, fighting his way through snow already knee-deep. The barn was dark, illuminated only by his lantern as he entered, stamping snow from his boots. The animals were restless but safe. Morgan moved among them, offering reassuring words as he checked that all was secure. He was about to leave when a sound caught his attention, not the wind or the animals, but something else. A human sound. Raising his lantern, Morgan moved toward the back of the barn, where a small storage area contained hay and feed. There, curled on a pile of straw, was a woman he didn't recognize, clutching a bundle to her chest. The woman startled awake at his approach, eyes wide with fear. She appeared to be in her early 30s, with dark hair and features suggesting Mexican heritage. The bundle in her arms moved slightly, revealing itself to be an infant wrapped in a tattered blanket. Please, the woman whispered in accented English, do not hurt us. We only needed shelter from the storm. Morgan lowered his lantern, trying to appear less threatening. I'm not going to hurt you. This is my ranch. How did you get here in this weather? We were with a wagon train, she explained, her voice trembling. My husband, there was sickness. Many died. The others left us behind when Maria became ill. She indicated the baby. I walked for days, then the snow came. Morgan felt a surge of anger at the people who had abandoned a mother and child, followed by compassion. You're safe now, he assured her, but you can't stay out here. It's too cold for the baby. He offered his hand, helping her to her feet. She swayed slightly, clearly exhausted and possibly malnourished. My name is Morgan Xander, he said. What's yours? Elena, she replied. Elena Cortez, and this is Maria. Morgan guided her toward the barn door. I have a house nearby with a warm fire. A woman named Josephine is there with her son. They'll help you. Elena hesitated. You are certain? I do not wish to impose. I'm certain, Morgan said firmly. No one turns away a mother and child in this weather, or any weather for that matter. They struggled through the blizzard back to the cabin. Josephine gasped when Morgan opened the door, revealing their guests. This is Elena and her daughter Maria, Morgan explained. They need our help. Josephine didn't hesitate. She immediately took Elena's arm, guiding her to the fire. You poor thing, how long have you been out in this weather? Let me see the baby. Elena reluctantly loosened her grip on the bundle, allowing Josephine to check the infant. She's cold but seems otherwise all right, Josephine reported. When did she last eat? Yesterday, Elena admitted. I have no milk left. Josephine exchanged a glance with Morgan. I'll heat some cow's milk. It's not ideal but better than nothing, and you need food and dry clothes. While Josephine tended to Elena and the baby, Morgan retrieved his spare bedroom's bedding, setting up a makeshift bed near the fire. Samuel watched wide-eyed from his doorway, curious about the newcomers. Once Elena and Maria were settled, fed, and sleeping, Morgan pulled Josephine aside. She was abandoned by a wagon train when her husband died and the baby took ill, he explained quietly. Left to fend for herself in the wilderness. Josephine's expression hardened. What kind of people would do such a thing? The frightened kind, Morgan replied. Fear makes people cruel sometimes. They both gazed at the sleeping mother and child. We'll help them get back on their feet, Josephine decided. She can stay as long as needed, Morgan smiled, warmed by her compassion. I was hoping you'd say that. The blizzard raged for 3 days, confining them all to the cabin. Elena gradually regained her strength, sharing her story in bits and pieces. She and her husband had been traveling from Arizona Territory, seeking work in the mines of Montana. Along with several other families, they joined a wagon train in Utah for safety. When sickness struck, panic followed. After her husband died, the others grew increasingly fearful that the baby's illness would spread. One morning, Alina awoke to find they had departed during the night, leaving her with minimal supplies. "I walked north," she explained. "Following the sun as best I could, I knew there must be settlements eventually." "You're incredibly brave," Josephine told her. "Many would have given up." Alina shook her head. A mother cannot give up when her child needs her. The words resonated with Josephine, who often glanced thoughtfully at Samuel during these conversations. When the storm finally broke, Morgan and his hands spent days digging out, checking on cattle, and assessing damage. Alina continued to recover, helping Josephine with household tasks while the baby grew stronger daily. One evening, returning from the far pasture, Morgan found the barn door ajar. Concerned that an animal might have escaped, he dismounted to investigate. Inside, he found Josephine standing alone in the dim light, exactly where he'd discovered Alina days earlier. "Josephine," he called softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned, her expression pensive. "I was just thinking about Alina." "About what would have happened if you hadn't found her that night," Morgan approached, removing his gloves. "But I did find her." "Yes," Josephine agreed. "You found her because you came out in a blizzard to check on animals that couldn't fend for themselves." "Because that's who you are, Morgan's someone who cares for those who need protection." The admiration in her voice made him uncomfortable. "Anyone would have done the same." Josephine shook her head. "No, not anyone." She took a step closer. "You found me too, you know. Not here, but out on the plains, another woman who needed help." "That was different," Morgan protested. "You were being attacked, and you rode toward the danger, not away from it." Josephine touched his arm. "Do you know when I decided I could trust you, it wasn't when you offered your home. It was when I saw you carry Samuel inside, the way you held him so careful, so gentle. I knew then that you were a good man." Morgan swallowed hard, unsure how to respond to her words or the way she was looking at him. "I've been thinking," Josephine continued, "about California. About what's best for Samuel, for me." Morgan's heart quickened. And I realized something when Alina told her story. She said a mother cannot give up when her child needs her. She's right, of course, but what Samuel needs isn't California or his uncle's charity. What he needs is stability. Safety, a place where he's loved. She paused, gathering courage. A father figure who teaches him to track deer and build snowmen. Morgan could hardly breathe. "Josephine, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that I think we've found our home, Morgan, if you'll have us." For a moment, Morgan couldn't speak, overwhelmed by emotions he'd kept in check for months. Then, moving with the deliberate care he'd shown that first day with Samuel, he cupped Josephine's face in his hands. "I've wanted to ask you to stay since Christmas," he admitted. "Maybe even before that. But I didn't want to pressure you, didn't think I had the right. And now," Josephine whispered, "now I'm asking, stay, Josephine, stay forever by my side, you and Samuel both." She smiled through sudden tears. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes." Their first kiss was tentative, a gentle exploration of newfound territory. The second was not. Later, they returned to the house hand in hand to find Alina feeding Maria by the fire while Samuel dozed on the rug beside them. "We have news," Josephine announced. Alina looked up, a knowing smile playing at her lips. "Good news, I hope. The best," Morgan confirmed. "Josephine and Samuel are staying permanently." Alina's smile widened. "I am very happy for you all. Samuel will be glad. He loves it here. And you?" Josephine asked. "What are your plans once the weather improves?" Alina looked down at her daughter. "I'm not sure. I have no family in Montana, no real destination anymore." Morgan and Josephine exchanged glances. "You know," Morgan said carefully, "this ranch could use a housekeeper. Someone to help manage things while Josephine and I focus on expanding the cattle operation. The cabin on the north side of the property could be fixed up," Josephine added. "It would give you and Maria privacy but keep you close enough for help if needed." Alina looked between them, hope dawning on her face. "You would do this for us? We take care of our own here," Morgan said simply. Spring came early that year, bringing with it new beginnings. Morgan and Josephine were married in April beneath the old cottonwood tree by the creek, with Samuel proudly serving as ring bearer. Elena and Maria watched from the front row, alongside Pete and the other ranch hands. Morgan had never seen Josephine more beautiful than she was that day, wearing a new dress ordered from Denver and her hair adorned with his mother's turquoise pin. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Samuel cheered loudest of all. The Double X expanded that summer, adding sheep to its cattle operation. Josephine's idea, based on her father's experience as a wool merchant. Elena proved invaluable, not only as a housekeeper but as a skilled seamstress who could transform raw wool into finished goods for sale in town. By autumn, the ranch was thriving as never before. Morgan added 2 more hands and began construction on an addition to the main house, a nursery, though he and Josephine had told no one yet about the baby they were expecting in the spring. One evening, as the first hints of winter crept into the air, Morgan stood on his porch watching the sunset. Josephine joined him, slipping her arm through his. "Happy?" she asked. Morgan looked at her, then at the scene before them, Samuel playing with the dog they'd adopted in summer, Elena hanging laundry while Maria practiced walking in the yard, the ranch hands leading horses in from the pasture. A complete picture. A family. "More than I ever thought possible," he answered honestly. Josephine leaned her head against his shoulder. "Do you ever think about that day when those bandits attacked my wagon?" "Sometimes," Morgan admitted. "I think about how close we came to never meeting. If I'd taken a different route that day." "But you didn't," Josephine said. "You were exactly where you needed to be, just like when you found Elena in the barn." Morgan smiled, remembering his words that night, "Stay forever by my side." "And I have," Josephine said softly. "I always will." As darkness fell over the Wyoming range, Morgan Xander held his wife close, marveling at how a single moment, a chance encounter, a split-second decision could alter the course of a life. From loneliness to fullness. From silence to laughter. From a solitary man to the patriarch of a growing family. The ranch that had once felt too empty now hummed with life and possibility. And as the first star appeared in the evening sky, Morgan silently thanked whatever fate or providence had led him across the plains that day, toward the sound of gunfire and the woman who would become his heart's true home.